¿Qué pasa, papus? ¿Cómo estáis? Espero que estéis muy bien. En el vídeo de hoy vamos a ver la historia del 2K Cheese. Es un vídeo que me han pasado de un canal que, por cierto, papus, os lo recomiendo muchísimo porque sube un contenido súper diferente. Dicho esto, vamos con el vídeo.
2K has always been broken, but sometimes it's the broken stuff we remember the most. From Euro step 3s falling like layups, to zigzag dribbles and speed boosting making defense feel pointless. Not to mention hop steps, curry slides, and invisible players running the 2s core. And that cheese has made some years unforgettable. This is the history of 2K cheese.
I like money!
2K cheese has been around for a long time. Old heads remember the spin dunks, the hop step layups, and all the broken moves that came before. But for this video, we're starting with 2K13, because that's...
Empezamos con el 2K13, papus, pues no ha llovido desde entonces, madre mía. ¿En qué año empezasteis vosotros a jugar al 2K, papus? Dejádmelo en los comentarios.
That's when it felt like cheese really became a culture. This was the year of the Euro Step 3. If you double tapped X or square behind the three-point line, the game would throw you into a weird shooting animation, and if your player had the badge Acrobat, it was almost guaranteed to go in. Suddenly, every My Team game had players Euro-stepping from deep like it was a normal jumper. And honestly,
madre mía, sabía que todos los jugadores en My Team estaban abusando de esto, pero a saco.
All that mattered was having a high three-point rating and Acrobat. If you had those two, you were dangerous. For a lot of players, this was their real first taste of 2K cheese. And the moment that they realized the game could be broken, and breaking it was part of the fun.
Madre mía. Se dieron cuenta de que el juego podría estar roto y que romperlo podría hacer que se lo pasen bien.
2K14 had some of the wildest cheese we've ever seen. Players found a glitch that literally made their mind...
Bueno, invisibilidad. Esto me recuerda al 2K26, a los inicios.
A player invisible. So you'd be getting cooked by a ghost on the 2's court. Imagine trying to guard someone you can't even see. If you lost to that, you might just be uninstalling. But it didn't stop there. On the 2's court, people figured out that you could also shoot off the inbound before the...
Vamos, que se la pasabas y directamente no te daba tiempo a llegar a defender. Tenías el tiro completamente libre. Pero esto, ¿cómo se les ocurrió?
Defense even had a chance to react. Cheap points every single time. To top it off, the active hands badge made driving to the rim an absolute nightmare. Anytime you tried to attack the basket, defenders would just spam X and rip the ball immediately like it was nothing. 2K14 might not get talked about as much as
Pero ¿cuánta gente hay aquí dentro de la pista?
The newer games, but when it comes to cheese, this game was pure chaos. And when you talk about 2K cheese, most people immediately think of 2K15. That's because this was the year of the zigzag. Guards would...
Bueno, empezamos con el zigzag, papus. Algo que ya estamos viendo a día de hoy, que seguimos viendo.
Dribble side to side over and over, just running back and forth until they got enough space to pull for an easy green. And the reason it worked so well, back then, stamina drained super slow. You could zigzag the entire possession without getting...
Vamos, que podías estar de lado a lado en toda la pista que no ibas a perder la estamina, ¿no?
Tired and still shoot like nothing happened. And the crazy part is, we still see zigzagging and speed boosting in today's 2Ks. 2K15 is where that style really became popular, and it's never truly...
Madre mía, menudo speed boost, ¿no?
...gone away. Another cheesy thing in 2K15 was the baseline dunks. These were an absolute nightmare. Once somebody turned the corner, it was almost impossible to stop once they pressed RTX. Everyone knew it was coming, but it still worked. If you played Park in 2K15, it's either you did it or you got cooked by it. But speed boosting and baseline dunks weren't even the wildest.
Es que esos mates más falsos que se teletransporta literal.
From that year. 2K15 gave us the demigod glitch, where 7-foot small forwards could speed boost, shoot from anywhere, and still bully you in the paint. If you went in Park with a regular build, you were getting absolutely cooked by a demigod.
He needs some milk!
And don't get me wrong, it was...
Los 7 pies, ¿no? Qué rotos estaban entonces.
It was broken, and it was unfair, but maybe that's why it was so memorable and fun. And that leads us to 2K16.
Bueno, papus, vamos con el 2K16. Para la mayoría de gente, el mejor juego de toda la franquicia.
2K16 is remembered by a lot of people as one of the best 2Ks ever. But if you played it, you know the game was cheesy as hell. The worst part of the cheese, speed boosting. If your My Player had the right size up animations on, you could launch out of a crossover like a rocket. Once somebody mastered the timing, staying in front of them was damn near impossible. And it wasn't just speed boosting. Sharps with limitless range could pull up from way...
¿Qué?
behind the three-point line. Add in a speed boost to that, and people were greening shots from deep like it was nothing. But maybe the most underrated cheese in 2K16 was the post fade. If you had a tall guard or a big with a decent mid-range, you could fade away all game, and it felt unguardable. Post fades went in at a ridiculous rate, and players
¿De triple? ¿Qué?
abused it in both park and rec. Still, a lot of people look back at 2K16 as the GOAT. It was full of speed boosts, logo shots, and post fade spam. That is exactly what made this game so unforgettable. And that leads us to 2K17. 2K17 was still all about speed boosting. Guards with the right dribble moves could fly out of crossovers, pull it from deep, and turn every park game into a three-point contest. But what really made 2K17 stand out was 2K themselves started cheesing.
Look at this dude.
That's because this was the year of the park.
Buah, yo no jugué este año, papus, pero esto me lo han contado. Se ve que habían cartas que literal podías usar en mitad del partido y que literal te podían hacer ganar o no ese partido.
Cards. You could literally pull a card mid-game to force an ankle breaker, boost your speed, or even guarantee a poster dunk. Imagine locking someone up on defense and then boom, they play a card and drop you on command. But that's not all the cheese 2K was pulling. There was also the infamous Paul George loading screen glitch. Every time you booted up the game, PG was stuck there. They were literally
La pantalla de carga interminable.
cheesing you before you hit the main menu. 2K17 was defined by speed boosting, but also 2K themselves leaning into the cheese with park cards and even that Paul George loading screen. It was the kind of year that felt ridiculous at times, but that's exactly why players still talk about it to this day. Next up, we got
¿Pero qué es eso?
2K18. 2K18 didn't just frustrate us with the neighborhood, they also gave us some of the most annoying cheese we've ever had to deal with. This was the year of the blow-by. All you had to do was tap turbo, hold the stick down towards the rim,
los
and the defender
traspasabas.
just slid out of the way. It didn't matter if they were
Podías ir corriendo hacia el aro sin
a
parar.
lockdown, a rim protector, or right in front of you. You were getting dunked on. Slashers and pure builds thrive because once you turned that corner, it was basically guaranteed points. And as if blow-bys weren't bad enough, 2K18 also gave us fadeaway cheese. Moving mid-ranges dropped at a ridiculous rate.
Papus, ¿puede que sea uno de los primeros 2K en los que se tiraba de forma consistente de media distancia?
So if the blow-by didn't get you, someone fading around a screen probably would. Obviously not including the neighborhood. That's exactly what defined 2K18 is blow-bys and unguardable fades. For a lot of players, it felt less like basketball and more like watching traffic cones try to play defense. People still bring up 2K18 as one of the worst and most cheesiest 2Ks, and that's exactly why it's one of the most hated. And that leads us into 2K19. 2K19 is remembered as one of the cheesiest 2Ks ever. The biggest problem was the momentum behind the back dribble. Guards would spam it over and over until
Vamos, que spameaban todo el rato el momentum con el behind the back.
Animation. Either way, it ended up in an easy 3 or a wide open lane. Then there were stretch bigs, 7-footers with Hall of Fame shooting badges.
No sé a qué me recuerda eso, papá, en el 2K26.
Who literally could pull it from anywhere like Curry. And it didn't matter if you had a hand in their face, stretches were greening over guards all game long. And if that wasn't enough, hop jumpers and fadeaways were everywhere. The worst part, contests barely worked. So players would just spam fades and hop jumpers and green them like they were wide open. 2K19 was taken over by momentum dribbles, stretch bigs, and hop jumpers. And it was chaotic and it was frustrating. And it's still remembered as pure 2K cheese. That brings us to 2K20. 2K20 will forever be remembered as the year of the hop step. If you had a
Madre mía, me acuerdo, papus. Yo este fue el primer 2K al que jugué, de hecho en pandemia fue cuando empecé a jugar. Y me acuerdo de los hop steps, los rotos que estaban, literal.
You could hop step into the lane and dunk on anyone. It didn't matter if there were 2 defenders waiting under the rim, hop step cheese made it look like they weren't even there. And this glitch was so overpowered, it even made Ben Simmons one of the best cards in my team. And that was because...
Bueno, eso de Ben Simmons, una de las mejores cartas de my team, pues sería ese año, porque creo que no lo ha sido nunca, ¿eh? Una buena carta en my team.
He could hop step through entire defenses without even needing a jumper. Every My Team game, you were getting dogged on by Giannis or Ben Simmons. They made this glitch unstoppable. And in the post, it was just as bad. The skyhook was basically unstoppable. Bigs could just spam it over and over. And the contest system barely mattered. It was basically a green every single time. For many players, 2K20 was remembered for the hop steps and skyhooks. And although it was one of the cheesiest 2Ks of all time, it was also one of the more memorable ones. Because through the cheese, players still had a lot of fun. That leads us into a whole different level of cheese. 2K21. 2K21 might be one of the most hated 2Ks ever, and for good reason. The cheese was everywhere. The move everybody remembers the most is the Curry slide. Guards would...
Madre mía, papus, ¿fue el año en el que nació el Curry Slide? No lo sé, yo no jugué este 2K, la verdad.
spam it back and forth until they finally had space for a limitless 3 or a fade into a wide open green. Every guard had it and every game looked exactly the same. But the real game-breaking cheese of 2K21 was the Zen. Players...
Bueno. Llegamos a lo que se usa a día de hoy, el Zen. Madre mía. ¿Fue en el 2K21 cuando empezó el Zen? Si lo sabes, déjamelo en los comentarios, porque yo no tengo ni idea. Pero bueno, si lo comenta aquí, supongo que será... porque sería a partir del 21, ¿no? Cuando se utilizaría.
Were literally plugging in a modded controller that timed every jumper perfectly. It was an unlimited supply of greens. It took no skill and took players who couldn't even shoot to save their life into Steph Curry overnight. Then came along the 6-7 demigod build.
6-7.
If you weren't running one, you were already at a disadvantage. They could speed boost, fade, and shoot.
Vamos, que los 6-7 eran los más rotos de todo el
juego. Which leads me to the next cheese in this game. Contact dunks. They were absolutely out of control. Slashers were running through defenders and dunking like they were in the dunk contest. It didn't matter who was under the rim. With all the Curry slides, Zen users, and 6-7 demigods, 2K21 was absolutely chaotic, and it was definitely frustrating. But it also cemented 2K21 as one of the wildest years of 2K cheese. And speaking of wild years of 2K cheese, that brings us to 2K22. 2K22 felt like it was built in a lab for playmaking shot creators. That's because this was the year of the left-right spam. Guards would
Bueno. Izquierda, derecha, izquierda, derecha, izquierda, derecha. No sé a qué me recuerda, ¿eh?
zigzag back and forth without even using real dribble moves. And that's because offensive players move so much faster than the defender. It was impossible to keep up. And the second you slipped, it was a green. And if they didn't green it, no problem. The sniper badge was basically a cheat code.
Buah, papus, ¿os acordáis de esta insignia que os hacía meter blancos?
Slightly early, slightly late, it didn't matter. The badge bailed out mistimed shots at a crazy rate. Then came the walk-back cheese. Guards would drive like they were going to the rim, then stop on a dime and walk their player straight back into a three. The worst part, your player walked back so fast, it felt like a backward speed boost. It was so annoying to guard. Playmaking shot creators were everywhere, and between zigzagging, sniper whites, and walkbacks, 2K22 turned into a shooter's paradise. It was frustrating, it was definitely sweaty, but it was pure 2K cheese. And when you're talking about 2K cheese, you can't forget about 2K23. 2K23 was supposed to be the year that defense finally mattered, but instead it turned into a year of steal spam. On-ball steals were out of
El año de los robos.
Control, and if you throw a pass, good luck. That's because passing lanes were completely
Madre
broken.
mía,
Defenders
menudas
didn't even have
líneas.
to be in a good position. They would just teleport into the lane and steal everything. And on offense, the meta was just as wild. This was the year of rim running. Guards and wings would just sprint to the basket every play, and the dunk meter made it even tougher to stop. If you knew how to time this thing right, defenders didn't stand a chance. And then of course, there were the adrenaline boosts. When I think about 2K, I definitely think about the steal spam, passing lane cheese, and rim running. It definitely felt different from years past, but at the end of the day, it was still pure 2K cheese. And that leads us to another game that had pure 2K cheese. 2K24.
Bueno, papus, vamos con el 2K24. Yo este juego lo jugué en PS4.
Balance, but of course, it still had its fair share of cheese. The first thing everyone noticed was the builder. Instead of experimenting, players felt boxed in because they had the same handful of meta builds. If you didn't make a certain cookie-cutter lineup, you already felt behind. And while
Vamos, que si no llevabas las builds meta, lo que tocaba, estabas con mucha desventaja.
dribbling wasn't as broken as years past, it still had its own cheese. L2 cancels, left stick cancels, and speed glitches.
Movimiento más falso, cómo se mueve el base.
Together moves that didn't look realistic at all. And the worst part, they were impossible to guard, no matter what your defensive rating was. 1 second they're hitting you with a size up, the next they're flying past you. The meta wasn't as wild as 2K21 or 2K22, but between the builder restrictions and the little dribble exploits, 2K24 still had that classic 2K flavor of cheese that players love to hate. Did someone say post-up cheese? Because next we have 2K25. 2K25 dropped with
Bueno, uno de los considerados peores juegos de la historia de 2K.
Clear flavors of cheese. On the perimeter, guards were crabbing defenders all year, and with the right dribble moves, they'd slide the defenders just far enough to get caught off the hit or stuck behind them, and the second that happened, it was a wide open green three. Every comp guard had this mastered, and once you got crabbed, there wasn't much you could do. But the real nightmare this year, the post scorers. The post spin wasn't just strong.
Buah, me acuerdo de jugar en el Proving Grounds 1 contra 1 en el 2K25 y que había mucha gente que llevaba el típico post scorer, pero vastísimo, y no lo podías parar el medio giro, todo el rato te lo comías.
It was game breaking. Bigs could spin right through defenders like they weren't even there. You could play perfect position, have your hands up, you could even cut them off. It didn't matter. The animation would throw your player out of the way and leave the post scorer with a free dunk or layup every single time. If you went to the ones court on Proving Grounds, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if post spinning wasn't bad enough, once they got comfortable, they could fall back on post fades. Because post fades still went in at an unreal rate. Add in a takeover and you were basically helpless. While 2K25 had the crabbing guards and post scores, the post spin blow by cheese absolutely broke this game. And for most players, this was the year where stopping a post score felt impossible. And that's the history of 2K cheese.
Madre mía, Papus, madre mía, pero no ha dicho nada del L2 cheese del 2K25. En el 2 contra 2, no sé si os acordáis que el pivot se ponía todo el rato como a postear y se creaba el base, se creaba un jugador que solo tenía velocidad, agilidad y tiro, y estaba todo el rato moviéndose, dexeándose para recibir y tirar. Madre mía, eso también fue tela.
Euro step threes to blow-bys to curry slides to post scores running wild in 2K25. Every year we think it can't get cheesier, it somehow does. And now with 2K26 right around the corner, I'll be honest.
Bueno, Papus, y en el 2K26, ¿qué es lo que creéis vosotros que es el cheese este año? Dejádmelo en los comentarios.
We're all hopeful this year 2K finally gets it right, but I've already seen clips that look pretty damn cheesy. Now what is very interesting is that more fun games from the past had a lot more cheese. So that leads me to the question, is more cheese more fun? Let me know in the comments down.
¿Es más cheese, más diversión? Bueno, Papus, ¿qué os ha parecido? Espero que os haya gustado. Os dejaré este pedazo de canal en la descripción, porque la verdad que tiene unos vídeos guapísimos. Y recuerda, Papu, si te gusta este contenido, dale like, suscríbete y activa la campanita. Nos vemos en la próxima, Papus. Chao, chao.